I've been looking at trading volume of various crypto games and noticed that after Illuvium's launch, Gods Unchained was still greatly ahead, bringing in millions of trade volume. So, is it a good game? What's it like? Hey everyone, I'm Caveman, and in this video, I'm going to go over what my initial thoughts are of playing it. I know it's been out for a while. I haven't actually dove into it too much until this last week or so. And you know, honestly, NFTs in card collecting games are really a genre combination that I think works really well when you attach blockchain technology. I mean, if you think in the real world, you already have card collecting, it just meshes really well together. Developed by Immutable, this was actually one of their first projects. Gods Unchained became available to the public back in 2019. This game is built on their own chain, the IMX blockchain, and it is a digital trading card game, or TCG, with similar gameplay to Hearthstone and really focuses on giving players true ownership of their cards via NFTs. You can actually start playing right now for free by downloading the game off their official website, and you can find that link in the description below. But let's go ahead and break down the tokens of this ecosystem. Gods is the core in-game currency for Gods Unchained. It is on the blockchain and it's similar to existing in-game currencies. Gods tokens will be rewarded to users through play, like the daily play and earn section of the game, where you play up to 10 ranked games, and then you'll be able to claim those tokens after 7 days. The amount of Gods tokens you can potentially earn depends on fragments that you earn from each match, and these can fluctuate based on a couple other factors, and we'll get into that a little bit later. These can be used to purchase card packs, crafting NFTs, and other marketplace transactions. Additionally, Gods serves as the governance token, allowing holders to vote on game-related decisions. Then you have those fragments which are accumulated in the daily play and earn. These are specifically used to determine your Gods rewards. These points cannot be spent and have no other in-game purpose or utility beyond calculating these rewards. The fragments that you earn really depend on your rank, your deck, and your previous match results. Then we have Flux, and this is an in-game resource earned by winning matches in ranked mode. Flux is essential for turning non-blockchain cards into tradable assets. You can fuse duplicate cards into a higher quality version, and then this can be minted in NFTs, traded on the marketplace, and I'll go over quality a little bit later in this video. Then we have stars, and stars are an in-game currency that is used to buy cards from the Star Store. In your game client or on the Gods Unchained homepage, you can see the number of stars that you currently have. Let's head on to the gameplay for Gods Unchained. Now, the first thing you might want to consider doing before just jumping into a battle is going and checking out what your available cards are in your current deck. You can do this by going over to the Workshop tab and then selecting Deck Builder from the drop-down menu. Here you can see all the pre-created decks along with the option to create your own deck with all of the cards that you've collected so far. You can also just edit one of the pre-made decks, and I would suggest doing that especially in the beginning. But for the pre-made decks, they are pretty good to go for anyone who, even if you've never played a card game before. I've read that the Nature deck is considered the most beginner-friendly. I've been personally playing the War deck. Both of these, I would say, offer you a good chance to get your footing into the game mechanics, and if you really want to do well, you probably need to understand the fundamentals of all of the cards among all of the decks. Now, if you do decide to create your own deck, you'll be presented with these choices. You get to choose one of 6 gods whose power can really change the flow of the game and how your deck is used. They also reflect different playstyles and abilities, so it's generally a good idea to play around with all the gods to see which one fits your style. When creating your deck, it's important to keep in mind to have a balanced choice of cards, especially when it comes to mana cost. Mana is going to be the resource that you need to play cards and activate your god ability. You're going to start with 1 mana and you're going to gain an additional 1 each turn until you reach a maximum of 9, similar to Hearthstone. Generally, the higher the mana cost, the more powerful the card is. Each card's mana cost is marked by a different number at the bottom. Some cards can only be played with specific gods, determined by the color. If they're gray, this means that card can be used with any deck. It is neutral. If it has a distinct color, it's tied to a specific god and can only be added to a deck with them as the leader. When it comes to card types, there are generally 3. You have creatures, which can be summoned to do attacks. Some creatures offer secondary effects, such as cards that allow only frontline attacks and not directly attack your god, or they can bypass the mandatory turn where the units can't attack when you initially summon them. They also offer other status effects such as burns, healings, to name a few. Then you have relic cards. These are items that you can equip to your god. These cards usually have disabilities or advantages, which represent how many times a weapon can be used before it breaks. Spell cards, which offer a ton of effects. They can surely turn the tide of battle if you know how to use them correct, usually traps or reversals in certain situations. After selecting your 30 cards, click select, and that card will be ready for your next match. Now, if you're like me, you don't want to spend hours building your team right now or your deck, especially if this is just a game you're just trying to tease out, see if you like it. Well, this cool thing about it, you can actually import your deck code from other players or a community database. GU Decks is one that I found useful, and you can quickly import one. Now, it only works if you own all of the cards, so you may need to buy a couple off the marketplace real quick just to get your footing there, and then you can dive into the game and see, hey, is this what you want to play? Now that we've covered the basics of deck building, let's go ahead and head on to the different game modes available. First, you have just casual. Compete against other players without impacting your rank, but you can really start to learn, and you do still earn flux. Then you have the ranked modes. This mode affects your ranks and offers rewards of flux, fragments, and card packs based on your performance. Then you have solo. This is just playing against a computer. No rewards available, but can be helpful if you just want to play against the computer and just have more of a relaxed kind of time. Then you can do direct challenges, face off against a friend, or train with a partner. This mode also doesn't provide any rewards. Then you have the newest mode, Sealed. It lets you play for different rewards using decks from a rotating selection of cards. I think this really levels the playing field and allows more skill expression in some ways. Regardless of how much a player spends on excessive cards, everyone has an equal opportunity to obtain the rare cards like the sought-after Demogorgon. Now, let's head on to a quick solo game and get a feel for the mechanics of Gods Unchained. As you can see, solo mode puts you against an AI opponent, and you can also not only choose your own deck, but also the AI deck, making this a good way to practice against all the different decks, against the specific build, get an understanding of how it flows and counters or different matchups. Now, before starting a match, you can choose one of 3 god powers to use. Review each of these effects and pick the one that fits your playstyle best. I'm sure there's also some meta-analysis of which ones are the meta and would have the highest win rates. You might want to check that out on various different third-party websites. After that, you can refine your starting hand by swapping out certain cards. I suggest aiming for key cards that support your strategy or those with low mana cost at the beginning so you can survive and get a good head start. The real match then officially starts, and your initial goal for your Gods Unchained is to take down the opponent's health to 0. This is the board. At the top, you'll find your opponent, where you can observe their moves and get a sense of their playstyle. You're positioned at the bottom. Here you can see your available cards you have this round, your god's HP, the god power you chose, and how much mana it costs. At the bottom of the screen, you can also just see your available mana. It's worth the note that there are cards that can recover some mana and some that can also reduce it, so keep that in mind. At the end, at the 2 ends of the center of the board, you can see how many cards you and your opponents have left in your decks. When a player runs out of cards, they begin to take damage. On the other side, you're going to find the Void. For Yu-Gi-Oh fans, this is your essential graveyard where your dead creatures and broken relics or spells go to. Also, like Yu-Gi-Oh, there are certain cards that you can effectively pull or resurrect from the Void. Next up is the Sanctum. Sort of like an in-game store, within the match you can use favor points to purchase cards here. You can gain favor points in different ways. One is by attacking the god directly. You can destroy an enemy creature out of combat, or when your creature survives an opponent's offense during combat and their creature dies. The number of favor points you gain accumulates as the rounds go on. You might find yourself in a situation where you urgently need a spell to take out an enemy creature, and it could be available for purchase there. So make sure you're checking the Sanctum regularly to see if there's any cards that could really turn the tide of battle. With a clear understanding of each element on the board, you're now ready to aim for victory. To play your cards, simply drag them into place, and you'll be able to place relics and creatures directly on the board and dragging spells directly onto the target creature or god you want to affect. Before starting the match, it'll determine who gets to go first. This is quite an important thing to note at the start of the match because it'll also determine who gets to attack first. Generally, summoning cards usually have a sleeping effect, aka not being able to attack until the next round, meaning that whoever places their unit first on the board will then on the third round usually get to attack first. Do note that there are cards that can bypass this mechanic and straight out attack right as they get summoned. That is the Blitz ability. Now, when you play your cards, you'll be able to click on this little arrow on the right side. This arrow will always point to the current player. It has actions. You can place units or cards on the board. Now, you just have to wait until your opponent finishes their turn, and this is a good time to analyze your opponent's playstyle, such as, are they saving up cards? Are they have a lot of excess mana? What's happening? Or are they placing down a lot of blitz cards and just attacking you? You know, you have to think of, are they more spell focused and stuff like that. This is really where you're going to be watching them. After your opponent finishes their turn, any creatures that you had on the board from the previous round will be ready to attack. Simply drag that creature to your opponent's monster or the god that you want to target. Each creature can only attack once per turn unless it has the Twin Strike ability, which then allows it to attack twice. In Gods Unchained, when a creature attacks another creature, it inflicts damage equal to its own attack power and takes damage equal to the enemy creature's attack power. However, if it attacks the god, it won't take any damage in return. Note that you can only attack the opponent's god if they don't have any creatures on the front line ability. You'll continue to do this until one of you has managed to take down the opponent's god. Now, I do want to go back on to a different feature that we didn't talk about earlier, which is card qualities. In Gods Unchained, not every card of a specific unit or relic is the same. In fact, those tagged as plain are not even NFTs. It is cards with meteorite, shadow, gold, and diamond qualities which are considered NFTs. So yes, all of those cards you currently have at the start aren't really generating anything. They're really going to be worth much unless you're able to fuse them using the Flux tokens and then secure through other free packs and rank up. Similar to other TCGs, qualities can be easily identified by the frame of the card. This plain old black one, well, that's plain, and so on and so forth. Okay, so these cards that aren't actually NFTs and thus aren't on the NFT, how can I actually trade and sell them? Well, that's what crafting element of Gods Unchained comes in, and you can actually upgrade the quality of your cards via the Forge by fusing them together, and then that upgrades their quality. Also increases your yield generation of the Gods tokens, or I should say fragments, thus increasing your Gods token reward over time. Now, as someone who hasn't been into card games for a while, I used to play Yu-Gi-Oh! A lot back in the day, but I didn't really touch Hearthstone or Legend of Runeterra. Those games just didn't really draw me in. I tried both of them, I just couldn't quite get into it. It just felt digital. I felt like I didn't like that. And honestly, adding the NFT element does make it feel more tangible, more like these are my real cards I'm playing with. It feels kind of cool. With that being said, it was an enjoyable experience. If you're a card game lover, I would definitely check it out. Obviously, this is a very, very beginner just intro. I'm going to keep playing and try to learn more. If you're someone who's very active in here, I'd love to hear your tips and how you play this game. Really interested in just playing together. Feel free to message me and maybe we can hook up and I can learn from you, because I need some help on how to play this and what's a good team. Been looking at some of the win rates on the GU decks, but nothing really crazy. Anyways, that's all I have for this video. I hope you guys liked it. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe for more, and I'll see you guys next time at Caveman logging off.